So we're going to talk about kind of priorities for starting out the year with the new church council.
That's
that
right,
what it
this is
or-
the time of year for
yeah,
it.
a new session or whatever.
Yep,
Yep. Well, you've actually been the head of a church council. I've never had that pleasure, but we both worked with a few. We both worked with a few.
well, that's what comes from being a lay leader in these days, you know,
It's a blessing,
that's right,
perhaps in disguise.
yeah.
The, I think the first thing I want to underline is something you and I both underline a lot, but it's about relationships. It's about the relationship of each of those leaders with God, with one another, and finally with their community, both their faith community and the surrounding community. And right up front, it's that relationship building that has to be at the top of the pile. And you know as well as I that we find dwelling in the Word the best way to get at the central
Yeah,
building of relationships.
yeah,
And because it both gets us to attend to God's speaking.
you listen deeply to the word, but then you also listen to one another, yeah.
You begin to understand that if you're going to get at what God's up to, it takes deep listening skills as well as insightful speaking.
That's right. Which doesn't happen automatically just because you're on the church council.
No.
I mean, I think a certain amount of trust needs to get built, and dwelling in the Word is one way to build that trust, even though it might seem off the point of a business meeting to some members.
We certainly have seen, with enough consistency to say the odds are with you,
Yeah.
that if you build trust in a group, it's way easier to deal with all the business issues and other issues that might, shall we say, fray the edges.
I think if you spend 20 minutes dwelling in the Word in the beginning of a meeting, your meeting will be over in 90 minutes and everything that you needed will get accomplished. But a lot of people don't see that.
I'm fairly convinced 90 minutes is the right number, too, after 30-some years of doing this. The pattern you and I have both seen is that these meetings go too long,
Yeah, absolutely.
and they deal with too many things, and they come up with too many things to do.
Yep, there's not enough focus.
There's no focus almost.
That's right.
But the best way to get to the focus is to build the trust. The best way to get to the trust is build the relationships.
That's nice.
Yeah.
A little this yields this formula. Oh, we should have a whiteboard instead of a ficus tree behind us.
Maybe.
Well, I was the church council president for a year. I was filling out the term of a guy, and I think the pastor was desperate to get a president on, and so I said, okay, I knew I had
For a year.
leverage. I said, well, I'll do it if we can dwell in Luke 10, 1-12 for the first 20 minutes of every meeting. And you know I can run a good meeting, so we'll be done in 90 minutes each time, but that's the way I want to spend the beginning. Is that okay? Because I don't think I'm going to do it if we can't do that.
Yeah.
And the pastor was desperate, so he said, sure, that's fine. Yeah, so that's what we did. And right at the first meeting, one of the council members said, okay, I'm not coming for this. I'm just coming at 20 after 7 then. Well, we said, well, if you must, that's okay, but what we're trying to do here is build community and hear one another and learn from the text, but just be spoken to the way the Spirit moves in dwelling in the Word. Then he was sure he wasn't coming till 20 after 7.
Yeah, right.
And I like this guy. I mean, he's a good guy, but he just couldn't bear it. And so, fine,
It's just too much.
that's fine, that's okay. But about the third or fourth month of that year, after we'd been reading about the pairs being sent out to places Jesus intended to go, and if they were welcome, they would heal people and proclaim the kingdom, you know. 2 women came to us. They needed really a place to move their daycare. And our church is big and has the facility, but would have had to go through umpteen dollars of renovation to get the right sprinkler system, et cetera. You know the sort of
To
thing.
meet the
Code,
code.
the local codes, yeah. But, so they came, and most of us sort of said, well, this isn't going to go anywhere. And even I said that in my own head. And I didn't really want to be presiding over the council that let it happen and then went into deep debt, because of all this.
Right.
But, okay, the women, they were really kind and gentle, and they talked about their ministry with great love and affection, and then they left. And of course, the guy who came late to the meeting was there for that. But his partner in crime, equally uncomfortable with dwelling in the Word, who had been doing it, though, 3 or 4 times, and Luke 10 had been starting in on changing his imagination, he said to the whole group, well, that was really something. And we all looked at him and said, how so? And he said, well, they were a pair. They came to us. They offered the peace to us. They offered us a chance to help and heal children as they were dropped off 3 days a week. I mean, I think we better invite them in. And I was stunned. But here it was, Luke 10 was working on these people's imaginations, and the Spirit was in these women when they came. And so, of course, we considered it, and the church liked the idea and the congregation decided to raise $140,000 to fit the building it's still operating. And in the last couple of years, the congregation has actually started to make friends with the parents of the children that bring their kids there 3 days a week.
You mean relationships?
I mean, there's so it's exciting.
Yeah,
But I think, okay, so that's an outcome, but the story that I think is in the nugget there is you've got to be willing to, when you have a new church council and new members there, you've got to be willing to overcome objections and just sort of build in some deep listening to one another.
Yeah.
And that could happen with a check-in, oh, how's your week been going? But how much more wonderful if it can happen around the biblical story that is at the core of the church, whether it's the Good Samaritan or Luke 10 or Philippians Christ hymn, I mean, how much more wonderful could it be to build your relationships around a text that actually proclaims that Jesus is Lord?
Yeah. I like that. Good way to start.
Good way to start.
Thanks, Matt.